The theory of evolution states that our survival instinct is the basis of our existence in our current form. So therefore, in order for us to survive out of fear, we develop traits that enable us to survive for a longer duration in a changing environment. Now imagine a different theory instead of the theory of evolution called the theory of purpose. So I'll explain it to you. The Kabbalah, they are the Judaic mystics. They say God created man for the purpose of the enjoyment of creation, and therefore there's a purpose, and that purpose is enjoyment of life's creation. And God gave us with no expectations of return. It doesn't make any change in the world if you pray to God, if you ask from God. Maybe if you ask from God, manifest. But to pray just for the simple intention of praying, it doesn't change anything in the course of humanity and in the course of life. So, how do we get to the theory of purpose? I will explain it to you through the theory of the formation of language, as told by philosopher Terence McKenna. So basically, we were apes. According to the theory of evolution, we became humans because of the need to adapt or based on survival instinct. Now, Terence McKenna says that when we were apes, there was a time in history when during the time of the apes, of course, when the planet started becoming warmer. So global warming, but for different reasons than we are facing now, or maybe the same. However, during that time, with the increase of the temperature of the planet, the forest lands started to shrink. And with time, as they shrank, the apes had less food to eat. So basically, they needed to try and test new things. Now, what happens with the increase of temperature is that the forest lands would actually decrease because of fires. And if you notice, when after a fire and a forest burns, what comes out is green grass. Now, what does the green grass attract? Herding animals, cows, sheep, horses, like animals that eat grass. Now, with the increase in the grasslands and the reduction in forest lands, the ape had less food to eat from the trees. And what he noticed, that on the dung or on the shit of these grazing animals, there grew lots of mushrooms. And then the ape came and saw these mushrooms, and while that ape was testing different foods to enable him to adapt to the new reality of less fruit, one very curious monkey decided to try the mushroom. And what happened is he tried a mushroom, a type of mushroom which is psychoactive. And psychoactive as in a magic mushroom. And when that ape tried it, it tasted really good. It really tasted very good. Like that mushroom that ape tried still exists, and it's one of the most delicious mushrooms that are out there. And it contains a psychoactive chemical. On low doses, what happens? Now, on low doses, the ape feels a wonderful rush. First, it tastes good, so he's really enjoying what he's eating. And then he gets a rush, and that rush actually makes him feel horny. So with that feeling of horniness, the monkey wants to have sex. So what happens is that monkey, of course, invited the rest of the monkeys to try the mushroom. And everybody liked it, and therefore it became a staple in their diet. And they gave it to their children, and the children gave it to their children. So it became literally part of everyday diet. Now on low doses, and they becoming horny, they would naturally increase sexual activity, which means more children, which means more children to feed. And therefore, we have now an evolutionary ape which feels and is not anymore just driven by sexual instinct, but by actually a more heightened state of sexuality that is driven by the mushroom. Now, another very curious monkey decided to take a higher dose, as in, instead of eating one mushroom, he had 5. Now, at that increased amount of psychoactive ingredient or chemical, that monkey achieved a higher state of consciousness. And what happens with the use of psychoactives is that the area of the brain that is responsible for communication and speech is very heightened, and this is scientifically proven. So, in that heightened state of consciousness, that ape started thinking and started wanting to express what he's thinking and feeling at that heightened conscious state. And this is the beginning of an artistic explosion. Dance, music, art, communication, formation of language. Now, going back to the Kabbalists and the theory that God, or their thought that God created man to enjoy what he has created. Now, if you go back to this very, very, very important topic, and then we go back to that first mushroom. So, with that mushroom, it was not based on fear. It was not based on survival. Well, partially, it started with survival, but then what happened? That ape loved the flavor, and therefore the trigger and the driver for the integration of that new diet was flavor, it was taste, it was enjoyment. They wanted to enjoy the flavor of that mushroom. It tasted so good. Now, when it was given to more of the apes, more and more of them, it became triggered, or the main driver now became flavor. Now, with that second layer of that curious ape that decided to take a higher dose. When he took that higher dose, he reached a state of heightened consciousness and wanted to express. So therefore, there's no fear here. There was no survival here. It was simply pure purpose. Here, that monkey found purpose. He wanted to express, to communicate, and to tell others about that heightened state that was achieved. And this takes us back to the same point. Enjoyment, creating communities, connecting. Now, also, Terence McKenna speaks in another amazing lecture about art, and actually raising the same question. Art and nature. And he draws the comparison between art and nature on the topic of purpose and evolution. And he says, imagine a tree that is started growing under another tree. So while it actually grows, that bigger tree is going to block its height. It's going to block the light. It's going to block its nourishment. And therefore, what would that shorter tree do? It will try to create spaces. It will try to reach to the source of the light. It wants to grow. It wants to live. And here, it wants to create. It wants to create fruit. And therefore, here the purpose is creation. And when we put it in the context of art and how, what we expect from art, Terence McKenna says is, we are a product of nature. Same as a tree, same as the sky, same as a flower. Now, if you draw the comparison between how a tree grows and how art should grow, if we are the product of creativity, then and nature, and therefore we should kind of understand the process of creativity from nature through the theory of purpose instead of the theory of evolution. So a seed grows in the ground. With time, it finds a source of water. It is in the soil. It is in the perfect environment for it to start growing. Soon enough, it will start coming out of the ground. It will start getting more nourishment from the sun and the light and the wind and the rain. It will grow with time, day after day after day after day. And then it becomes the place where the birds come. It becomes the place where apples grow. It becomes a source of food. So here, the tree is in no fear. The tree simply is driven by purpose. Hosting the birds, growing apples, feeding us, feeding the animals. So it's driven by purpose. The evolution of that tree was to give us life, to give us enjoyment, same as the mushroom. And art is the same. We expect art to, when we want to do a creative endeavor, we come up with the idea and we want it to be a big hit. We want millions of people to see it. But we don't give it time to grow. We don't give it the right conditions. And we don't give it the right time. We don't give it the right space. We don't give it... A tree takes years to become a tree. But once it's a tree, it's undeniably a tree. And the same as art. If it develops slowly like a tree, grows like a tree, gives fruit like a tree, and hosts the birds like a tree, then every creative endeavor will work. The reason why we fail to express our creative expressions is because we don't know that creativity functions like a tree. And that is literally our purpose, to create, like the Creator. And what do we to create? Like the Creator. Spaces and trees and love and art and music for others to enjoy. So, to break it down, we are not driven by fear and evolution. We are driven by a purpose to create for others to enjoy. Because after all, God created us as per His image.